What's up, guys? It's Sebastian. You know, the more you dig into the question of attraction and look into dating and keep digging and asking these questions about why women react in a certain way to certain men and why maybe they don't react in a certain way to you, it leads you, at least it has led me to a couple of different things. Along the way, you think you found it, you found the answer, you found the conclusion, and that's it. But then you come across some evidence from someone else, someone who seems credible, and you start to really dissect it. You start to look at what they're saying, and it holds weight and it puts into question what you used to believe. So then you go through the process over and over and over again, where you start to figure something out, you believe it, you think it's the right thing, and you start to act in accordance with it. It's dismantled. And then in this stage here, where your beliefs are dismantled, you might feel a lack of confidence. You might feel like you weren't as smart as you thought you were. Because, oh, well, I thought that it was like this. I thought this was the truth. I thought this was how attraction works and that I was doing the right thing. And now I've spent X amount of time, sometimes years, chasing the wrong thing, acting and living my life in accordance with the wrong thing. And that's time that you're not going to get back. And it might make you quite depressed. And that's kind of what's happened to me. And so it's funny. I was thinking back to almost 10 years ago now, when it was my second year in China. I came back to Shanghai and I was pumped. I was excited. It was another school year, meeting a whole bunch of new people. I was seeing progress across the board, right? I was still teaching English. We just moved to a new place to host these classes. I was meeting a whole bunch of new students. I was making more money. I was, like I said, meeting new students at the school I was studying Chinese at, going out, fun times. It was great. It was exciting. I thought I was on top of the world. And what's funny is now when I look back, in terms of income, I was broke. I wasn't making anything. I was probably clocking $800 to $1,000 a month. But my living expenses were paid for. And I really didn't care that much. I was still feeling good. I felt like, I could go out and I could conquer, and I was being validated. And plus, when you're a student, when you're in that environment, living on campus, especially as an international student, no one really cares. Everyone's just kind of open-minded. I mean, sure, there's some kids who place more importance on your financial status, and they won't hang out with you because you can't afford to keep up with them or whatever, but that's not who I'm talking about. For the most part, the students are going to be pretty open-minded. They're not really going to care. It's not usually until later on when people are expected to go out and get jobs and start providing for themselves that this is, at least in my experience, something they place more importance on. But it's funny because at that point, even though I was making a lot less than I am now, I felt so much better about myself because it's kind of like that saying, ignorance is bliss. You feel like you're doing great. Comparatively, I was so broke, and I was living in a big city in Shanghai. Lots of rich people there. But oddly enough, 2015, that was when it was, that was probably one of the best years ever for me in terms of dating. I remember on occasion, I would have 2 girls in a week, 2 different girls, and in the funniest circumstances too. And I often think back to why was that working so much better for me? Was it just because I was in college and I had that social circle element to it? Not necessarily, because a lot of the girls that I went out with, they were from outside. They were from different places. I met them at bars and clubs and the mall and all that stuff. Was it because I was a foreigner, a white guy in China? Probably. That is not something that we can discount, that will have an advantage for any guy who goes to Asia, generally speaking. Might be a different case now after the whole, virus thing and just how China's economy is looking right now. Who knows? I haven't been back in a long time, nearly 8 years now. But it goes without saying that I felt like I was on the up and up. I had social events. I had a vibrant social life. I was meeting new people. Like I said, I was going out. I was meeting new clients. I was making more money. I felt like I was progressing in all these areas. I also remember that, cheesy as it sounds, I was saying affirmations to myself in the mirror. Again, cheesy, but I was telling myself, I am handsome. I'm wanted. Women want me and they want to be with me. All this kind of stuff. Even though it wasn't necessarily true in the moment, it quickly materialized. This is a principle that you've probably encountered in other kind of self-help material if you're into this kind of stuff. Neville Goddard, reality transurfing. You will notice that a lot of them tend to echo the same ideas, that you got to believe it before you can see it. You've got to hold in your mind what you want to manifest before you even have it, and especially when it's difficult, especially when you're not in a good spot in life, financially, emotionally, where it's very difficult to imagine that things can actually be better for yourself, that you even deserve things to be better for you. And this is 10 years ago that I was doing this. Am I saying that this was the key to my success? Not necessarily, but now that I reflect on it, it doesn't hurt. People really like to, I wouldn't say they really like to, but oftentimes they write off or they disregard the idea of doing affirmations. Maybe it can actually help. Again, it doesn't really take anything away from you. Imagination and dreaming and thinking about what you want and telling yourself that you deserve it is free, effectively, and it all happens up here. No one else has to judge you for it. And so I also wanted to tie that into, what I'm experiencing now in my life. A year ago, in the summer of 2024, things really started to take off for my career in remote sales. I started to make more money than before, for sure. And that has allowed me the luxury of having a very flexible lifestyle, being able to travel a lot, visit different places, have financial security, be able to go eat out and experience different things. I'm not super big on splurging on, gadgets or clothes or anything like that, even though I could, and I'm thinking maybe I should. But I quickly realized that even though I was making more, it still didn't really change my social situation. And this is probably why you'll see there's a lot of guys out there who do really well financially and they still can't figure it out. They still don't have the kind of social life, the dating life especially, that they really want. And part of that comes down to what I was talking about earlier, where it was this phenomenon where I wasn't comparing myself to other people. I didn't realize how broke I was compared to other people. I didn't feel sad or a lack of confidence because I wasn't on that level. I didn't let it bother me. And in a way, I just felt good because I was progressing all these areas of my life. But on top of that, even if you have a lot of income, you have to know how to spend it. Because if you just use it in ways that generally are proven to not really move the needle, then don't be surprised when things aren't changing for you the way that you expect them to, right? Like, think about it. Do a thought experiment with yourself right now. If you were to just snap your fingers and make an obscene amount and see it appear in your bank account, what are the first things that you would do with the intention, with the mission of changing your circumstances and improving your social life in a long-term kind of permanent way, right? Would you just go out and buy a sports car? Would you get a penthouse apartment? Would you go travel to different places? I chose the latter, right? I'm here in Warsaw, Poland. Great city, quite nice. You can see the clock tower again here. So it's not just the clock tower. I think it's a theater as well, a museum. But if you're not strategic with how you use those resources, someone with less resources but who knows how to use them in conjunction with a strategy is going to get further ahead than you. Someone who has the circumstances, the social circumstances to take advantage of it is going to do better than you, right? The guy in college, it wasn't even just me. You think about an American college, Canadian college, and my personal experience, a guy who's a sports star, a guy who is invited to all these different parties, a guy who, okay, he's not broke, neither does he have a lot of money, but he has some funds, he has a car, right? That's super valuable because it facilitates fun, it gets people together, he's got his own place, stuff like that. It allows people to get together and mingle and enjoy a new experience that they on their own wouldn't be able to facilitate. So you think outside the box and you try to get these things happening. There are even programs now. I see them popping up on YouTube, and guys have school communities where they teach you how to build a social circle, build a thriving social life. I haven't really looked into them, haven't paid for any of them, but I'm sure that there could really be some value there, because as you guys can clearly tell, this is a problem, right? Because you would expect that once you have put in that hard work to make this money, that hard work to improve your body too, then you're going to reap some social rewards. Let's be real. A lot of guys are in business or pursuing a high-powered career because they want hot women, because they want to succeed in dating, because they want that validation, and they want to really patch that hole in their life, right? What's the stereotype? And I kind of fit that mold too. The guy who in high school or even college, kind of nerdy, kind of a social outcast, not really taken seriously by too many people, not really getting much attention at all from women, and thinking, okay, well, at least I'm halfway intelligent. At least I can go to a good school. I can take some kind of training. I can get a high-powered career. I can make a lot of money. And then everything's going to solve itself, right? That's not necessarily how it works. And feel free to contradict me. Feel free to write in and share what experiences you have or what you've observed. But from what I'm living right now, from having come into a little bit more money than the average person and traveling, right? Living in different places, having even the skill of cold approach to go up in a mall or in a nightclub or on a busy street and talk to women. I'm telling you, it's not quite as straightforward as most people would think. Oh, just have money. It's a lot more to it than that. Before making this too long, too ranty, last thing I really want to say is that, nobody, and I've touched on this before, no guy in his right mind chooses to suffer. No guy in his right mind chooses a reality, a day-to-day existence where he's sorely lacking in one of these crucial areas. We're human, we have to socialize, and as men, on top of it, we have needs, right? And so, obviously people can be lazy, and then you can argue that, well, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're not getting the results that you want to be getting. That's fine, but it's a different kind of frustration when you are doing a lot of the things that you quote unquote should be doing. You are going to the gym. You are working hard in your career. You are educating yourself and reading and learning languages and working on a hobby. You are getting out there and even practicing the skill of cold approach and dating, and yet you're not getting the kinds of results that you want to. right? As I've said many times before on this channel, this is not to complain. This is not to have anyone feel pity for me or feel sorry for me. This is really to just kind of give everyone a snapshot of a really candid perspective on what it's like to go through these stages. You guys can feel free to go look at my YouTube videos from 2 or 3 years ago when I was arguably kind of a dirty hippie living out in Mexico and living in the jungle, just chilling, making enough to get by, but nothing substantial, to now I'm more of this cosmopolitan, professional, well put together, world traveling young guy. And there's still problems, right? So my hope and my intention is that these problems will be resolved, and that then you guys can look back and you can see what the progression was like. You can see how it felt. You can see how many times I wanted to just quit, how difficult it was to stay in the game mentally and not just think, well, this is a scam, or this is never going to work out for me. It's just not in the cards for me. I guess I'm not meant to make good money and live a free life. I guess I'm not meant to be attractive and have good looking women in my life and actually have some choice, some abundance, some freedom in that sense. Because really, what's the alternative, right? You really just have two choices at the end of the day. This is going to wrap the video up. You either stay in the game and you keep taking shots, you keep taking some risks. Some of those might include paying a dating coach, paying for a course, a boot camp, buying books, scouring the internet, forums, looking for all sorts of answers, and eventually finding something. Or you just give up. Or you just say, nope, that's it. It's not going to work for me. You can take breaks, right? You can take a rest, you can pause, you can say, okay, I'm going to focus on something else for now. But ultimately, you don't really fail until you decide that you're going to quit for good. So I've said this before, I'll say it again. You just keep your head in the game. That's all that it really matters.